Alison here. Welcome back to Words and Pictures for a few minutes of fun. Just a little bit of fun today using paper napkins to start off the early layers for journal pages, tags, could be anything really. They're also really great for wrapping around jam jars to create candle lanterns. You've seen me do this with tissue paper and with stamped tissue paper and all that kind of business. I'll link to some of those videos down below, but you could easily do that with a paper napkin. I'm always on the lookout for napkin sets that I think are going to be useful, and you can create matching sets of lavender candle holders and all that kind of business. If you want to see that done with an actual paper napkin, let me know in the comments. But I'm going to start off a few backgrounds. I think it's also a really good way to avoid blank page syndrome is to get something like this down. And then even if it ends up being covered up completely later, we'll go on to some more layers. It's there and it's stopped you having that blank page syndrome. So I think it's a really good way to just kick things off. I even managed to track down some with some umbellifers in one of the Czech cheapy shops recently. And then I might just also go on to do a bit of experimenting. I often like to combine it with adding Crackle paste, texture pastes, a little bit of that, just to get things started on the page. And then I also wondered about whether it's possible to shift the colours of these. So I'm thinking of having a little go with some colour mediums and just seeing what we can achieve in terms of not always having to have purple flowers, because I love these flowers. And I am known to use purple occasionally, but I might not always want them bright purple. So they're kind of poppy-like, aren't they, really, some of these? And yeah, we'll see if we can create some different coloured poppies. So the basic technique is incredibly simple, as I'm sure you'll know. Why don't we use some of these, in fact, since I've got a whole pack of them. I've given this a little coat of gesso, but there's not quite enough. This is the very cheap gesso that I was talking about the other day, and that's fine, but yeah, the coverage is not great. So I'm going to put a bit more gesso on that. And I've also got here, so this is just a hardback book. I've also got my Dina Wakley ledger journal here, which I also quite like to start off with a little coat of gesso. I like how it prepares the pages for other mediums, but I also quite like knocking back this full-on yellow. It's a bit too yellowy for me. I know old paper goes yellow, but it doesn't have to go this yellow. So even just a light brushing of gesso makes me a little bit happier when I come to these pages. And as I say, it's quite good for just changing how you can see I'm just picking up. There was too much gesso on the book, so I'm just picking it up and putting it in here. I also think it's quite good to put some down the spine there, just in case of medium running through. So a little coat of gesso is a really good way to knock back background detail, if that's what you want to do. Plus, it gives you a surface that will work really nicely. Sometimes when you're working in an old book like this, the paper can be very absorbent. So then if you're using inks and things, they just right into the paper. I've just noticed I haven't got my mat in place, so let's get the silicone craft mat. Any craft mat will do. Something water resistant is quite good. I haven't cleaned that brush because I'm thinking I'll just use the same gesso-y brush to put on some decoupage colour. Oh, now I've done it again, haven't I? I'm always doing this when I work with paper napkins. Quite a good idea to do your separating of the napkin first, because all these paper napkins come with multiple layers of paper, or for the most part they do. And you don't want the back layer, you just want the top layer with the imagery on it. Also, I tend to tear off, so around the edges where they've been pressed together, they have that kind of texture. If you like that texture, fine. I prefer not to, and in any case, ripping them at the edge can sometimes make it easier. Oh, these are high quality napkins. Look at this, 3 layers. There's one. There's 2, and then I'm left with a much more translucent top layer. But also the problem is if you rustle, that's good ASMR for anybody that enjoys that kind of thing. If you glue down your bottom layer, if you glue it down with all the layers in, the chances are your bottom layer will stay glued, and then you might find your top layers unpeeling. I'm not going to glue it across the whole of here, although I've put glue across the whole of here. I'm thinking of coming in from sort of one corner and another corner. So I just want to see, I think I want this little arrangement. I'm going to go, and I always tend to tear my edges as opposed to cutting them, because you get a much softer finish. So I'll put a little bit more glue in this corner now that I know where I'm going with it. And it's going to go across the spine, which will be nice. I have got some of that texture on there, and I'm going to live with it. I'm going to just press that down into the paper, and then what can be quite, I love that you can still see the book text through it. That's the joy of having this ridge translucent layer. And then it's quite a good idea to go again with the moist brush, and I'm just kind of circling down into it. And the brush is also still slightly gesso-y, so that's doing a nice thing for me of softening those purples just a little bit. I might go back in with some more gesso. It's one of the main things that I tend to do as my next layer. Now you can see I've got bits of tissue sticking out over the edge, but I quite like that. This whole book is shaping up to have bits sticking out. So for now, I won't trim that. I'm going to leave that. I was thinking of having another bit coming in from here, but actually maybe I just want to leave space up there. So that's one thing to consider. You might want to put in 2 bits of decoration, and that would just leave you a sort of empty strip down the bottom. But at the moment, I'm quite liking that idea of flowers growing up in this direction, and then something else might go on. But since I've got that piece torn, I'm thinking I might use it in the ledger journal as well. It's such a big, bold design, and the ledger journal pages are large pages. That's why I haven't zoomed in yet. It's because I was aware I might be coming back here. You can absolutely, oh look, that's lots of gesso. But then, as I say, this cheap gesso does kind of need that. Can you see now that's really giving me proper softening of the yellow? If I were using a more expensive gesso, like the golden that I quite often use, I probably wouldn't have needed 2 layers. So even though this is a big, cheap bottle of gesso, I'm going to go through it more quickly. So economies aren't always economies. This is, one learns this. You buy the cheap version of something and then find yourself having to replace it 5 minutes later. It's not quite as cheap as you thought it was. Whereas using a high quality thing, you spend that bit more money in the first place. Invest in your delight, in your creative journey, and you sometimes find that that actually works out more economically in the long run. Don't really want that little hard bit of texture there. Come away. Might need to get the tweezers. No, that'll do it. Good. So I can still see that underneath, and again I've also noticed that with this gesso it dries much clearer. Quite often gesso fades in the drying, even the expensive ones, but I've noticed this one does it a lot. Yeah, I'm going to keep that gesso-y again. Gonna come from the opposite corner now. I might just do a sort of cornery bit on this side, because this page has got all this lovely handwriting on, so I quite like to keep most of that visible. So I'll just do a sort of tall strip. Maybe these edge ones, they're really quite nice along this edge here. Maybe, oh, maybe with that one big poppy. So again, I'm going to tear, because that's going to give me a much softer outline, and I'm just going to live with the fact that that tore all the way through that middle of that poppy. I'm going to keep these edge ones hopefully visible. Look, that's just about the right height for the book. I tear a little bit there so it's not quite such an obvious ending. And I'm going to tear that texture off there. Actually, I might go to the top corner. That's what I want. Okay, so again, with this gesso-y, and it's much more gesso-y this time. It's got a little bit more gesso on the brush. Just going to go down into that. You see it's brushing away the gesso that was on the page. And it's this overcoat of wet brush but enables you to really get that tissue to be fully transparent, or translucent, not transparent. It's not fully transparent, is it? That's a really nice starting point for a page, I think. And then on this page, I am going to do the balancing act and really have quite a lot of colour. I do like those two. I like that. Let's take the rip down here. I'm going to use some of the other napkins on other backgrounds. Let's see. Yeah, I think that's good. Again, the glue going down just sort of approximately where I need it. The gesso is still wet, and that's fine. Although, as you saw, it did mean that it was sort of brushing away. But this is the messy first layer. This is going to disappear under other things, as you'll see in a minute when we're going to start adding next layers. We're already losing a little bit of definition and detail. Look at that, as that gesso-y brush goes over that flower. It's just softening it already. I positively embrace these little wrinkles and texture things. They're going to make life very interesting later. Much more interesting when you put other mediums over them. If there's a little bit of wobbly, wrinkly texture, I like that. If you want to get an absolutely pristine finish, good luck. Much better to embrace imperfection and just know that it can go in every which direction. Now on this one, I think right away I'm going to start putting some scrapings of Crackle paste so that can be getting on with its crackling while we're busy. I've just noticed looking over here that this little corner is coming up. So while I've got some glue on the brush, just going to glue that down. And as I say, this is just giving me starting points so that I haven't got blank page syndrome when I turn up. Right, probably time to give that brush a little rest. Let's use a palette knife for Crackle paste. Love Crackle as a sort of first layer in this kind of thing. So I'm just going to round the edges, a little bit of Crackle texture detail. Going to, oh hello, that's a big dried lump. That's why that's scraping off, came from around the edge. Don't need that. Good, let's dig a bit deeper and get some nice soft Crackle. Yeah, so just a kind of scraping of Crackle going on to add texture, and I like to get it at sort of different thicknesses, scraping out towards the middle, so you'll get finer and finer crackles. According to how thick your Crackle paste is, you'll get differently sized crackles. If it's quite thick, you'll get quite large, quite deep crackles. So I'm just applying this fairly randomly, but as you can see, it's about edges and about partly on this paper napkin, partly not on this paper napkin, but also softening those places where the paper napkin meets the rest of the page. And as you'll have seen when I'm working with tags, I quite like to give that a little pat, because again, that's going to change the thickness of the texture paste. See that little bit of napkin coming up? Untroubled. Going to let it dry and then see where we're at. So that's a kind of next layer already going on that page. And yeah, it just gives me it'll give me a nice textural starting point. Hopefully by the time we've finished here, it will be doing its crackle a little bit. These, I think I probably do want to just peel away. If you do it while the napkin's moist, you can just very easily take off any excess. That's a nice starting point, isn't it? I've got one bit of purple left over, and I think I might just, I've got a couple of tags here cut out of, what did I cut them out of? You can see I drew round one of my tags. Oh, I think it was the bamboo notebook, the cheap bamboo paper, not the expensive bamboo paper, the cheap bamboo paper. And I just did a sort of rough tag shape because, as you know, I do love working on a tag. So I think I'll not do full coverage again. I'm going to get just a bit of floweriness on these. Get my brush back, wet now of course. So just dried off a little bit, still got a bit of glue in. These I'm gonna glue down like so. So as you can see, it's just a really quick way to start off a number of things. The springtime colours are inspiring, the lovely florals, obviously, as a lover of botanicals. Lots of botanical stamps, and I might well be going to use some of those over the top of these. Again, I'm embracing the wrinkle. Very happy with that. That's fine by me. And as I say, around the edge here, you can just pull it away. You can trim it later with scissors, or you can leave nice scraggly bits of paper. So I'm just going to make sure again that that tissue paper, that paper napkin, is properly wet through. And if I can see any bits where it's sort of not gluing down, this is going to be a lovely tag pair to play on, isn't it? Quite like, yeah, again, that the idea of the balancing act, always, you know, with me, compositionally, I like to have that up, down, left, right, allow things to just move around. Could go either way up, actually, couldn't it? I think two big flowers is quite nice on there, isn't it? So again, just a bit of glue, approximately where I'm going to go. These are the IKEA children's craft brushes, perfect for this kind of job. Just a multi-purpose, cheap as chips, so even if you do forget to put it in water, it's not going to bankrupt you. You get a set of 6 for a couple of euro. There we go. So I'm going to let those dry and then come back and see about trimming them later. While I've got tags on the table, I might start with my next. Oh, there was a thought. So I've got some sort of craft rice paper that I've been using. We used it on textured tags on Wednesday, in fact, and I thought it might also be quite nice to layer into here. It will layer with the tissue, because obviously you've got 2 lots of translucent stuff going on. So I'm thinking maybe this down first. Well, we should experiment, shouldn't we? We should do one where we put this down first, and one where we put the napkin down first. So it's just a way of having another layer within what we're doing. Might put a bit more just heading down to the bottom. And then I'm going to see what happens if I layer some paper napkin over the top of this. Just Google for craft rice paper and see what you can find. You can already see where you've got 2 layers of that over each other. You get a darker tone, which is just already really fun. What should we do on these? Let's go leafy. So I've got these lovely eucalyptus napkins. Again, let's see how high quality they are. Again, I find if I just rip the corner off, it'll give me access to being able to peel away the layers underneath. These are always worth keeping. These will add texture to a page just as they are. In fact, we might do that as well. Just going to see if there's another one here. It feels to me as though there might be. Yeah, yeah, there it is. If you've got cheapy napkins, they might just have the 2 layers. Most decent paper napkins are triple ply. So let's see. Let's have this nice leafy bit here. And it's just kind of identifying bits you're interested in. So we're going to layer this over the brown. See what we get. Just place it down. See, you got that lovely kind of earthy brown underneath. I don't think I want that texture, so I'm going to get rid of most of it. Going to get rid of most of that. Don't want that hard edge, that hard line, so I'm just going to rip that as well. Get off. Get off. Get that down over there. Nice. A little bit more under here. Wasn't fully glued. So that's a really nice effect with the layered paper underneath. Now we'll put our next one down with leaves first. That's a beautiful stem there, isn't it? Look, let's see if we can get that into action. Yeah, maybe heading in that direction. There we go. So let's get some glue down. It's also a pretty economical way of creating your first background, because most packets of paper tissues, paper napkins are not, you know, not that expensive, and you've got multiples of them. So again, if you want to make matching cards for everybody for Christmas, for instance, she said in May, or if you want to create a tag book or mini accordion album, it's a way of having something consistent on every page, and then how you decorate each page differently to get variation. So that the thing I'm always going on about, repetition and variation, is sort of how my creative mind works, and it gets you that right away. So you could have similar elements in the background with each one, but then vary what goes over the top, and you're creating repetition and variation without even having to think about it. So I'm just thinking I might run that down there. That's quite nice. So it's partially over the napkin and partially not. Yeah, and it's going to have the hole through it as well. So both of those work really nicely. Whichever one goes over the top, you end up with much the same effect, because both your papers are translucent. There's maybe slightly more definition, ironically, in the one where this is over the top. Odd that. Right, I'm going to let those dry before I trim. I quite like the idea of a bit of that leafy paper on another of my... Ooh, here's another little journal. So going over blank pages in journals, why not? It's the same difference. Maybe we'll have a bit of leafiness, because that's what we've got on the go. Let's see. I could go full coverage on this page, almost. Maybe we'll run it almost all the way across the page. Yeah, let's see. So I'm going to take off this top bit. Just create a little bit of gradient running downwards, like so. And again, it's just giving me something that means I don't turn up at this page and go, oh, what am I going to do today? I'll turn up at this page and go, oh, look at these beautiful leaves. I wonder what I'd like to add to them. So let's just... You can see it's quite a thin coat. It doesn't need a lot of glue to glue down a paper napkin. That's going to be famous last words, isn't it? It's going to not glue. Well, it's not going to glue if there's no glue at all on the page. That's not going to happen. And again, you can see I'm using the brush fairly vigorously. Yeah, you need to watch out a little bit, because as with any tissue paper or fine paper or rice paper, once it's wet, it does become a little bit fragile. But you can be relatively energetic with it. And again, I'm really not working to get rid of wrinkles. It's just not how I roll. I like the wrinkles. If you want somebody who's going to show you how to get a pristine decoupage application with paper napkins, I'm afraid you need to find another channel. That's never going to be what I'm working for here. I embrace the imperfections. In fact, I positively pursue the imperfections. I think I do want to put another bit here that's going to carry us on. So again, I'm going to lose that hard line, the hard straight line, just so it's a bit softer down there. That's quite nice actually, with the ripped edge at the bottom too. And yeah, that bit's a bit creased. Kind of okay with it, actually. Let's put that like so. Haven't quite got that wet, but again, with very thin papers like this, you can actually get the moisture through the paper onto the page underneath if you give it a little bit of extra welly. That's a very British expression. Give it some welly. International watchers, forgive me. And carry that on and then maybe go up a little bit again. Yeah, that's good. And then with this one, I'm going to just maybe scrape some texture paste. Could do texture paste through a stencil. Could just do plain texture paste. There we go. But you see how quick, see how simple, you see how easy to get something just started. I think what might be quite nice over that is a little scraping of, well, maybe a scraping of gesso actually. I'm going to put the gesso, or white paint might be better. Going to show up better. So let's just get ourselves, this is the PaperArtsy Snowflake. And then I think again, I might work with the palette knife. So where's some paper towel? I could use this really, couldn't I? That's what paper napkins are really for. And just create some scrapings of texture on the page as well. So it's a lovely next layer, just a statement of intent, really, I suppose. I'll be back with some more crafting. Here's my first layer of paint. Just those scrapings, hitting some of that wrinkly texture, just creating a little starting point. I like that so much that I might do it a bit on these tags as well, where we'll also have the interest of it going over the crafty rice paper. That's scrumptious. And just creating a little bit of, if it's gone over too much and you want to knock it back while it's wet, you absolutely can get that pattern back. Let's put a bit in here. It just excites me a little bit, that scraping with a palette knife. It gives you texture, it gives you delight. Still got some, shall we put some somewhere else? Okay, these might be nearly dry now, so I could experiment with changing the colour a little bit. I really want some lavender in the mix, I think. So let's go lavender here. I've just been pruning my lavenders. Can't prune them in autumn here because they won't survive the winter. They go on flowering quite late here, and then if you cut them back just before the winter, it doesn't seem to work very well. Let's get you off. Come on. So a little bit of patience with these is sometimes necessary. I know people use tape as a thing. Just a little bit of tape to help you separate these. See, the trouble is I've still got the little textured edge, so it's still holding it together. If I get rid of that, it should release me my layers. Don't drop it in the paint. Oh well, can't be helped. Still got texture, so this is quite a broad edging on this one. Okay, you don't need to watch me fiddle with this again. Back in a sec. So that was another 3-layer napkin, and 3 layers that really didn't want to come apart at all. Really worked quite hard at that. What have I done with my glue? It's at this point, if you've got matching glues, that you end up glue and crackle paste getting mixed up. So don't do that. It has been done in the past, and it's a bit difficult gluing napkins down over crackle paste. So then you have to change direction, do a crackly tag instead. But this will do for now. So I think we'll do one where the lavender is mostly blue. like so. I might need a bit more glue. I'm starting to get a bit casual with my glue application. A little bit more to have this glue down. There we go. So one where they're a bit lower set on the tag, and then one where I tear it in a different place so I get a lot more of the lavender greenery. Back to my childhood just briefly then. Lavender's blue, dilly dilly, lavender's green. When I am king, dilly dilly, you shall be queen. Promises, promises. Sorry. There we go. So that one a little bit higher up. So we're getting lavender grasses. And I'm just wondering whether this mightn't be quite nice to add an extra layer of lavender with some of those other purple flowers. Let's get this down first before I get distracted onto another bit of project. Let's go a little way over the top. So this distress collage medium is obviously designed for exactly this kind of thing, and it's pretty much the perfect consistency. You can, if you've got sort of a general white acrylic glue, for instance, this Cosmic Shimmer, which is much thicker and whiter, if you mix it with water, something like 1/3 glue, 2/3 water, gets you a pretty decent. Oh, those are so pretty. Obviously, I've got a lavender stamp, and that might end up going some way with that. Just wondering about putting, as I say, some of this lavender as a layer. Maybe it would be quite nice to have some lavender growing out of here as well. Purple is purple is purple. Just kind of drifting out from behind those flowers, or drifting, maybe there. But if we do that, then I think I am going to want at least one stem over there as well. So, ripped it, not to worry. Since I'm gluing it down, it'll be glued back together. A lot of texture on that bit though. Let's have a look and see what we think about some lavender stems joining the party. I think that might be quite nice. Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. Can always just do another page if I don't like how this one turns out, can't I? Got many more napkins. So let's get those coming in from there. A bit like that. And again, just layering it over the top, creating depth in my background, depth in my sort of flower bed on the page. That texture is managing to disappear quite effectively as I put glue through it, so it's not terrible. There's a bit of a crease through the napkin there. Again, don't really mind. That's quite good, isn't it? Might want to just get these down to the ground, as it were. Maybe we'll use that. That's quite a lot of lavender. Let's use something subtler, like this little section, just to fill in so they're not sort of floating up from mid-air, but there's a sense that they're heading down into the ground with roots. It's important for a plant to have roots. Quite important for most of us to have roots. Somewhere to return to, whether that's creatively or geographically. That's just gonna, there we go. Softening into those layers of lavender. And then I'm sort of thinking I'd quite like the purple flower to carry on down there. I've actually got enough on the edge of this tag. Just so it doesn't cut off so abruptly here is all I'm thinking. A little bit of the purple back in. Perfect. That's what I want. Nice. Good. That, you know, that might be enough for one day. Little scrapings of this, little scrapings of that. Again, just maybe that statement of mixed media intent to return and add more to what's going on here. Let's trim off a bit of these. Oh, I was going to have a look at maybe how we can change the colours a little bit. Although I'm actually, now that I'm working with it, I'm really enjoying the purples. The irises are due shortly outside, and we've got lovely purple irises, so there's that. I'll do some trimming. I'll do a close-up. Lost the lid of the glue. Just glancing around my table just to see where I've got to. This Crackle is going to take a little way longer, so I'll let that do its crackly job before I come swooping in for a close-up. But we might go on these tags and just see if we can shift. No, I'm not going to shift the colour. I beg its pardon. I've decided I like what's going on in terms of colour schemes here. So those oranges are just going to have to wait for another day. Unless, well, let's just do a little experiment, shall we? Since we're playing, I'm going to take another page in here. That's still drying. I'm going to take some of these roses, pink roses. Lovely. I mean, they're lovely. But we'll do this as an experiment. This is an experimental little journal. I'm going to glue down some of these roses and then just see if we can create a peach coloured rose instead of a pink one. So again, let's peel this apart and I'll be back when I've glued it down. I decided it makes more sense to just do it on a little scrap piece of paper that was lying around. I've got a couple of options here. I've got the amazing PaperArtsy Mattints, which are a matte tinted transparent glaze, and this is glow. And so if I'll put it over some of this first so that you can see one layer gets you the subtlest little sunshine glow. If you add more layers, you can build the depth of the colour. You can do that once it's dry, or you can add it. So you can see you could give that whole thing a sort of vintage glow, changing the colour of the background. Or I can go in to an individual flower, and I'm just thinking if I start adding some glow to an individual flower, I can just change up the look of that quite effectively. Glow is nice. I've also got Squeezed here, which is a really beautiful rich dark orange, another beauty. Let's put some on. If you've not seen these Mattints in action, I can link some videos below. Layering Mattints over tissue paper is something I've done with my Botanical tissue paper quite often, and it brings me great joy. So let's see what happens if we take one of these other flowers and turn it into a bit of a, oh, that's giving a lovely sort of salmony pink as opposed to the soft pink. So changing the colour of that is lovely. You can, of course, layer two different colours of Mattint over the top of things. If you don't have the Mattints, obviously it's also perfectly possible to work with a watercolour paint or with a watery wash of an acrylic paint, but you'd need to be a bit careful. Make sure it is nice and watery, or that it's a translucent paint, because otherwise you're going to cover up your details quite a lot. So this is Distress Ink Spiced Marmalade, just to have a little look at what that'll do over the top of a rose, and more immediate effects. So the thing with the Mattints is they look bold in the bottle, but they're really, really subtle, so you can get a very, very subtle effect. And in order to get that depth of change of colour, you have to put several layers on. But the good thing about them is once they're dry, they're permanent, whereas these Distress Inks obviously will continue to move around. They'll stay water reactive unless you seal them with some Distress Glaze or a matte medium. See, I'm enjoying how this is just changing up the colours of the roses. So you could go with a subtle bit of the Mattint around the edges, and then maybe take that Distress Ink into the centre, so that you're creating that sense of depth in your rose. Ooh, that's really rather fun. So just changing up the colour of what's on your tissue paper, just because you see a tissue, you see some paper napkins in the shop and they're all a colour you don't particularly like, nothing's stopping you getting in there, changing up the colour. So a whole wash of this will just give you a different kind of sunshine look. Or you could also go with something like some stormy sky in between. It occurs to me. So that you can create the look of the sky in between your roses. And again, because the inks are transparent, even if you do go over a few of those leaves, that's not going to fundamentally change things. If I take the blue over the pink, of course, I'm going to end up with a kind of lilac-y coloured rose, which isn't the colour of roses. But it could be used, if this purple is offensive to you in any way, you could use something like the stormy sky to just mute it a little bit. I don't want to, so I'm going to lift that up again, but that was just to kind of show you what's possible. What I am going to do, since it's there on the mat though, you know what's going to happen. I'm going to use up this ink with a little spatter onto that bare bit of page. Again, it's subliminal, but it's just that statement of mixed media intent. I'll be back. Grand. I hope you've enjoyed that little sort of super duper run around the possibilities of using paper napkins to start off your backgrounds. As I said, if you're interested in seeing some paper napkin lanterns, let me know and we can do that. But if you want to just see the basics of lantern making, I'll link to those. What else was I going to link to? Oh, Mattints. I'll do a little bit of trimming around some of these. Some of it will be tearing. I'll just tear it away, as you've already seen me do, to get hold of some paper. Some of it I might trim nice and neatly with some scissors. But I quite like that rough edge to those. Thank you, as always, for your company. If you've enjoyed that, do give me a thumbs up. If you're not already subscribed, please consider subscribing to the channel. And if you hit the bell notification, YouTube will let you know whenever there is a new video. We're on our new timing for this few minutes of fun, so it will be coming out on my Friday evening, Friday few minutes of fun, so that you've got it there for the whole weekend to play. Thanks so much for your company, and happy crafting all.